Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to What's Up with Startups. This is episode number 4. And with me here is Tanya Melesa from CICON app, which stands for Circular Concierge, if I'm correct.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Great. You nailed it, Emin.
I was practicing this, as you know.
Thank you. You've done
And
well.
cool. Well, nice to have you here. We met almost 10 years ago. Actually,
My
it
God,
was 2015,
seriously.
I think. Yes.
I think
Uh,
you're right. Jesus,
yes.
time flies.
Uh,
Wow.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
much happened since then, hasn't it?
absolutely.
Same.
Yes. And you made quite a pivot because we met
Mm.
in London at the Bloomberg New Energy Finance Conference. You worked for
Mhm.
Bloomberg at the time, and you were heavily into energy analytics, and now fashion.
Let's call it garment analytics, shall we?
Garment analytics. Okay. So,
It's still data, just a different product.
okay, cool. So
Um,
can you tell briefly to our listeners and people who watch this, what is it you're doing? Uh, what is it you're doing for the environment? So in your startup.
Still asking myself that question, honestly. Well, in a nutshell, to put it in the energy perspective, perhaps, and the reason I've moved, pivoted, shall we say, from energy to fashion, or let's call it apparel. Fashion is perhaps, very niche word. Apparel, footwear, etc. The reason I pivoted is because energy sector has been developing its environmental transition for a very, very long time, since the 90s, right? And first wind turbines were successfully launched in the 80s as well. So in energy sector, it's been spiraling, going through its turfs and turns for about good 30 years. Learning curves have been very good. In the apparel sector, it's always been extremely stale, very creatively, but from the perspective of manufacturing, data gathering, understanding material science, environmental impact, it has been stale until about 2018.
Oh,
And as an entrepreneur, as you know, our job is not to jump on the wave when it's already on. As a surfer, you need to wait and see when the next wave is going to come, right?
yep.
So in 2018, I saw that the energy sector actually happened, right? So it was a big boys game. It was the corporates game. The wind was the cheapest in Chile. Solar was the cheapest in Saudi Arabia. It's already been happening. The transition has been on. And, working at Bloomberg, I saw that 2050 is going to be massive. Yes, there's a lot of opportunities to make money, but as an entrepreneur and innovator, it was already too late in a way, in certain way. But there was an interesting article in Forbes stating that the second dirtiest industry in the world at a time was fashion, believe it or
Oh,
not.
really?
Indeed, being responsible for between 10 to 15% of global CO2 emissions.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when, working on the terminal, I immediately started researching, why, where does it come from? What is the supply chain like? What are the government incentives like? And needless to say, there was nothing. There was no supply chain. There was no government incentive to incentivize anything to do with sustainable or circular fashion. So I saw that this is probably going to be the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But coming from, energy sector, you sort of immediately start thinking, we need a new invention, right? We need a new, interesting, sustainable type of shoe or sustainable t-shirt. And that will change the industry. And I started that. So I've done a couple of years in the footwear, which was, very interesting and successful pre-COVID. But then the reality of this particular industry, it's not about making something more sustainable. It's about using something for longer and buying fewer things. So it's completely different mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of putting up more sustainable things, like putting up more sustainable energy resources, you're actually consuming less, fewer items in your wardrobe. So it was completely opposite thinking in that sense. And this is where idea for CICON came about. The main question was, how do we reduce the amount of things that we buy? And the answer to that is we keep it for longer. How do we keep it for longer? At the same time, stay on top of the trends, maybe. And how do we dispose of things that we own sustainably, such as donate perhaps, or recycle, etc. And I personally was struggling to research everything myself. I owned maybe 10 different apps on my phone, one for resale, one for cleaning, another one for shopping, care products. It was a bit insane at some point. So I thought somebody must put all of these things in one place for user convenience.
And the things and when you say things, you say just to zoom in here and make it very clear. The things things which help you to take a garment, and this garment that would live longer.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So essentially what we do, we connect garments to the life cycle support services, be that matching care products based on the garment materials, care instructions, price, cleaners, dry cleaners, repair shops, resellers, charities if the user wants to donate, or recyclers. So it's a full life cycle support. And as you can imagine, data mining is amazing. Very, very few fashion brands understand their post-consumer activities of their customers.
Okay. This is just before we dive into how you actually do it, it seems to me that you're going to like a little bit against the grain of the common vision in the industry. Well, I didn't do any research in fashion, but from my experience as a consumer, I mean, I find it very hard to get like a decent pair of jeans that will last me like 5 years. But I realize I have to like change them every like season because they just wear out. And I think that's the business model. You just, you turn over, you come up with new.
Yes, it's called NEAH business model. Yes. Yeah. And it's based on the volume. Exactly.
Yeah. What I read sometimes from time to time in the media is that, okay, well, there's a reason why they call it fast fashion. And there are so many shops. I go to almost any mall in the world and I find the same brands all over the place. And there's slight differences to account for the local taste, but really it's the same, and it's not really cheap actually, but it does feel like you wear it for a season and then you basically throw it away, not because it's not fashionable anymore. It is not fashionable anymore, but because it just doesn't look as good.
Exactly.
Is that what you're targeting?
Partially, yes. So if we're talking about jeans, there's different categories of wardrobe possessions, right? There's jeans, as you've correctly mentioned. There are dresses, there are handbags, there are shoes, and every category has its own life cycle and its own sort of fashion appeal, so to speak. But going back to the sort of fundamentals of maintaining and keeping it for longer, how do we actually do it? So for jeans, it will likely be using the care products that are suitable for denim. So one of our suppliers of care products, Clothes Doctor, for example, devised a formula which is keeping jeans in color for longer. So it reduces discoloration and it reduces the it reduces the damaging of the cotton threads that it's been sewn with. So it all comes together to how do you actually keep the actual material looking good for longer? Now, there could be other issues with the jeans. You wear them so much that you have some, holes somewhere that you need to sew. If that happens, you can buy a sewing kit yourself, or you can send them to a sewer to repair them if you wish to. So there is an element of growing awareness. Yes, it's easier to go and buy a new pair of jeans, right? But as we all know, consumers are becoming more and more conscious. Throwing away jeans feels like a waste to most people. People want to recycle them, but they don't know how to. And this is what we're solving. We're giving them the tool to send those jeans to recycling or to the repairer without actually breaking their brains, Googling, searching, wasting time. So we just put everything in one place.
Okay, but they are the users of your product, right? They're not the clients. They're not the
Uh,
paid clients.
Correct. So in the B2B2C model, yeah, things are sort of slightly
Yeah.
more complicated.
Let's take a step closer to your internal workings, but still being outside. Who are your clients? Who are paying for all this? Because as I said, it seems that you're going against the grain. It would be like contrary to the fashion brand interests to actually have you.
Yes and no. So if we're talking fast fashion, if we're talking, so they are facing extreme scrutiny right now
Oh,
over their wastefulness. Um, and it doesn't really bother most of the people who are their customers, people who just don't care about environment. But what is happening in Europe, particularly, I don't know if you've heard of Digital Product Passports initiative that is coming up in Europe in about 2 years.
I heard about the same in the battery field, but I didn't know
Yes,
that you have it.
exactly. I thought you might have. So battery was the first comer, and it is expected that textile industry will be regulated similarly to the battery sector.
It's not regulated yet, but it's expected.
Expected, correct. Hopefully it will pass in May, maybe June.
Oh.
But so we all are sitting and waiting. But the interesting aspect of it all is if it does pass, brands will have only 2 years to jump on board and actually report on their manufacturing supply chains and their environmental impacts, and to make sure that their products are repairable and recyclable. It's going to be an extremely fast learning curve, steep learning curve for them, and it changes. So a lot of them sort of are sitting there and waiting and not knowing what to do. But quite a few of them are already, doing their homework and collecting that data, and working with certification companies to make sure that, their supply chain is well certified, etc. But interestingly, a good chunk of brands are not really doing their homework just yet. And this is where we suspect there will be seismic changes in the industry in about 2 years, which is what we're preparing for.
Okay. So you laying this groundwork, and but you've been doing this for some time, right, already? How long?
Yeah, so we've been researching this for quite some time. We've got the research grant from Lancaster University in 2021. So we've researched it for a year. Realized that we've kind of did a pilot as well in Australia for 6 months. We've realized that there are legs, that we could actually build a business out of it. And about a year and a half ago, we've registered the company here in the UK. So yeah,
Okay.
it's been research, R&D / investment fundraising / user studies, and it's a feedback research, etc. So it's been a proper startup journey up until pretty much now.
Okay. I've been tracking you for some time here on LinkedIn. But
Docker.
yes, I was looking at, okay, what is this?
Yeah.
I found it very kind of exciting, I'd say, because
Thank
I
you.
do have that approach. I mean, I try to practice what I preach. So
Yes.
not only in the energy field, but also in the general way of living. And so that interests me a lot. And do you think that, are you starting your growth? Because I had the impression that you are growing that. And are you growing now? Or you think that this when that regulation comes out, that will like supercharge your growth?
That will supercharge. So in a typical startup manner, we were a startup, then we started growing. Then that growth sort of staled because we realized we need to do a little pivot. As you know, when you think you're growing, it doesn't always means real growth. You see the uptake, but actually there's a bigger opportunity if you do just do it slightly bit different, or in different geography, or so pivoting is a very, very common thing in the startup world. So after the little bit of uptake in the growth stage in Australia, we've worked with 6 brands over there. We realized that the market is just a bit premature for us. There's no legislation, it's too small. UK and Europe was a lot more exciting because of the regulation, because of the size of the market, and because our team was here. So we've decided to refocus on the UK. And when you do that, it's very risky because you're back to square one. But at the same time, you know that you are taking that step back to then supercharge your growth in the future. So this is what happened to us. It was a little bit of a loop like this. And it's absolutely common, I would say. It didn't help, of course, the our quarterly reports to investors in terms of the growth trajectory, but if you have the right investors, they're all comfortable with little pivots, and they know that, as long as you justify that, and you see the big picture in the future, that will work out. So yeah,
that's the interesting part. Can you, because I can imagine what that, I'm not imagining, I know how that looks like, because I had the same kind of experience in the energy startups I was doing. Can you tell how did you manage to convince them? Which arguments you used to convince investors that you need to take that step back? Okay, they see that growth, and every investor is very excited when you say, okay, now that they're growing, yes, finally, and then you come say, no, we should just change. But you're growing, come on.
Yeah. Very good question. So two things. For us, it was the ability to maintain customer support. Because we were in Australia, customer support was becoming very challenging because of the time differences. And we could have invested more money and set up the team there. But then again, you look at the long-term picture and you think about whether it's worth doing it now and for just fractional growth, or you change the trajectory a little bit and you bet on the fact that the similar growth will happen in this geography as well.
So this was a growth versus higher growth versus potentially also growth but lower and additional investment.
Correct.
So guys, you either pay more money and we stay in Australia, or it's not so much money, but we do it in UK and we have like a dip in the growth.
It was a little bit actually more money just to pivot to the UK because we had to set up the infrastructure all over again, connect services, get care products, resellers, repairers, etc. But the size of the market was so much bigger and the team presence here in Europe meant that we could be a lot more effective in the long run. So yes, and to be honest with you, because of the size of the business where we're at that stage, it was relatively easy to make that decision. And because of the nature of our investors, who, even from the start, were questioning, why are you in Australia, for God's sakes? Could you find anything for Fiji or, New Zealand could have been probably, the last resort. But so it was an easier decision for them, but it did mean that, business will show, kind of good downfall for a while, and it was big bet. It was the bet. It sort of justified. We did launch in the UK during London Fashion Week, but unfortunately coincided with the recession, and the fashion industry sort of started, there's been a lot of bankruptcies in the industry. Farfetch has has been purchased out. I don't know if you know. It's very interesting to see when you see that something is a bigger market, then something unexpected happens, and then you're like, okay, so we probably need to wait 3 or 4 more months. But at the same time, I'm, hopeless optimist. So I see that as an opportunity to hire fantastic talent. When there's a downside on the market and you have a chance and you have the funding to hire best talent, you go in and get the people who are actually going to make your business succeed in the long term. So I see it as an opportunity, if anything else.
I can relate to that. When I was doing the battery business, we just bought a company. Everything was going fine. And then the COVID hit and the chip prices hit. It's like 2-3 months after the
Yeah.
purchase.
Yes, exactly. COVID was so pivotal for so many people. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, so what kind of, but then you said your investors kind of say, oh, they bought it, so okay, we can live with that. We can live with this downturn. Then they get hit by another downturn. And then it's okay, but we still we stick to our guns and okay, we trust in founders. What kind of, how did you find them? How do you find those people? It's a bit of a challenge, I would imagine. And how did you raise that capital? I mean, what was your capital journey?
Uh, so initially I tried the traditional route in the UK, the seed enterprise investment schemes, SEAS. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Basically, it gives tax breaks to people with money. If they invest in startups, they get 50% off their taxes if they invest a certain amount of money, which is pretty much almost risk-free because it's, 75% almost guaranteed payback for them. So initially I tried that, but the thing about schemes and traditional routes, they're really, really long term. Like you really need to work your butt off to build relationships for a very small amount of money. Angel investing in the UK is ridiculous. So the average ticket is between sort of 5,000 to 20K, right?
Okay.
But if you need £300,000, you need to build relationships with so many people. That's like, changing schools and trying to be friends with every single pupil in the class. It's very, and run a business at the same time. So it turned out to be quite unrealistic. We did have sort of a couple of investors who have committed to the round, but we're still sort of subject to more investors coming in and closing the final round. And then what happened was I decided to just take a step back, tap into my network, and just go to people that I know. I've been known for a long time. And just started talking to them about the evolution of the industries, about what their next investment journey is. And it so appeared that, people that know me, people who've seen me over time, they are much more prone to invest money into you, even if they didn't plan to invest money into you before, rather than starting everything from scratch, going into the industry and asking them for money, because it's such an unproven concept. And as you said, it is actually going against the global trend at the moment. So it was not easy. It took probably a year to do that, but in the end we found an investor who took on the entire round of 300,000, and happy days.
Oh, and then you still have that investor with you? Oh,
Yes,
did
of
he?
course.
So he moved with you through that pivot. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, since the pivot happened, the investor became a lot more active in the business, and is very helpful and supportive, which I'm super grateful for.
Okay. So shifting gears here, from you had the pivot, you had then the recession. How did that affect your growth plans? And what are they now? Well, how fast you plan to grow?
Yeah. So now we've taken the last 5 months have been pretty much the growth is subject to the additional investment, right? So the second round for us, it was angel round pre-seed, now it's the seed round. We've learned a lot in the year, right? So as a startup, you learn about your market, you learn about your customers. In our case, it was a lot of user feedback collection. Documenting every single recommendation and what to change in the app, and user flow and user journeys and this and that. It was a proper R&D journey for us more than anything else. And armed with all this feedback, we now know exactly what we need to do to make our users happy. And at that stage, invest more money. Once we do what the users are asking for, invest money in, more marketing, more sales, better product, and potentially even new geographies based on the new European law. So we are currently going through a due diligence process for the seed round, which hopefully will be closing in about April, May time. So keeping my
Okay.
fingers crossed.
And the growth plan is to go to European countries outside of UK and go to EU.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And how fast do you want to go?
Oh, as much money as I'll be given. No, listen,
Well,
the speed.
the round that the seed round that you're raising, how fast will it allow you to go? I mean,
Yeah, no, good question. Listen, for me, it's about people first and foremost, right? So we have a team, and it's proven to be good, but we need additional team members to make it faster, shall we say. And this journey of entrepreneurship over the past 5 years has showed me that people are the most important aspect of any company. And for me, it's all subject to the right people, attracting the right talent to the business in the next 6 months.
Okay. How do you do that?
Good question.
I mean, just sure, because on the previous episode, we had very interesting discussion about it, because there was a team to build this floating solar power plants of a company called Heliorec, and they had a big challenge. So they had they had a monocultural team, then they switched to multicultural team, then they took people from oil industry. It was incredible journey. So how do you build your team? What
very good question.
tools you use?
So regionally, I thought that I need people in fashion. We went through a few cycles of hiring, and what I realized is what we really need is people from technology rather than fashion.
And technology, by technology, you mean like the app design, or what?
Simply running an app, taking an app off the ground, with the specifics to the industry, or at least the targeted audience. It could be app, I don't know, ordering food, but for specific audience that we cater to as well. It's about what they like, what they react to, how they react to gamification, whether they want those bonus points, whether they don't, what triggers them, etc. So what the hiring plans will likely be strategically targeting for, towards the tech sector that has operated in either fashion or homeware, jewelry, you name it, but people who know how to work with technology and data, because fashion industry, it's mainly creatives. Even if you're on commercial side, even if you're a buyer, even if you're whoever, it's about trends. It's about whom connectivity. It's much less about the geeky science as you and I are, right? Much less about that. I mean, it's also about the dollar in the end of the day. But we all know that Tesla is not a car company, right? It's a data company first and foremost. And it's the same here. We're yet to see a fashion brand like Tesla, which is primarily a data company, that is going to create that garment that is going to be, so future-proof. So that's where we're working towards.
Do you have any specific interviewing process or screening process for your staff?
Yes. So the interviewing process really is around, so first of all, the background, the hard skills, but on the next stage of sort of recruitment, I want to see a lot more proactivity. So
how do you measure that?
If I see the person pushing me, chasing me, pushing me for feedback, adding value throughout the process, this is my person.
Okay.
If I see that I have to chase for the answer, for this, for that, send the people information, this is more me kind of trying to pull them. People who are self-starters, who already get it, quickly get the product. They ask the right questions. They challenge you. How are you guys going to do this? What's your strategy? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? This is what it can bring. These are the people who are going to drive your business. They're pushing you rather than you're pushing them. And you see it quickly. You see it after the second email follow-up. So that's the main difference.
Okay, cool. And with such a team, I mean, but your team is mostly UK based, so it's a British team, but you're going to expand to Europe, so you will be hiring European techies, like
Yeah, so
or it will be different. Will it be like a different cohorts?
probably a little bit different. So if we talk sales, so most likely folks that sold technology solutions to the industry, you know, I don't know, sales forces, whatever of this world. If we're talking pure tech stack building, like who's supporting the app, you know, in this case, it doesn't have to be the European-based team, right? It could be team-based anyway. We currently have the team, and it's, you know, it's a good team, solid product, etc. We will need to be hiring more probably UX-based talent, maybe additional stack to support the features that we want to build, etc. But ultimately, European hires will most likely be technology focused, the hires that already worked in the industry.
It will be interesting to come back and talk to you like in a year's time, see how you integrate how do you juggle the cross-cultural team? Because I mean, for some cross-cultural teams, it's like it's a must. They just we cannot work with a monocultural team. We just need the cross-cultural team. People need to be from all over the place. Some places it's not that, and it would be interesting about you.
I don't look at it that way at all. I don't look monoculture or multicultural. I look predominantly on the merit basis, yearly merit basis. Whether you're the right personality, whether you've got the right skills, whether you get it, how quickly you learn, how you react. But frankly, it started from the multicultural straight away. Initially, you know, there were two people, one Australian and one, you know, Ukrainian in England. So it was very, very multicultural. So, and even now, you know, all shareholders are pretty much all over the place. So it's, I never looked at specific cultures. I always looked at like, whom do we need to make it a success? Who is going to make or break this company?
Okay, great. Now, taking one step further. Your customers are, you said you're gonna look for people who sold tech products to the industry. Now, how do you convince like fashion companies or garment manufacturers to use your service? What's your selling point to them?
So there's three things that we found that works, at least in the short term, hopefully long term as well. So first of all, it's the added value to their customer. In our sector, customers always looking for newness. How they look, whether they look great in it, it's number one. Of course, it's fundamental design, but also the ability for the brand to deliver flawless, easy service to maintain that garment in a very cool, funky, gamified way. That is the, you know, the next step in the right direction towards the climate-friendly business model. The second one is really the data. Operational data of a garment. So if you look at the unit economics, you know, let's go back to the energy sector, right? You manufacture a wind turbine. There is an OPEX, but most of the CO2 emissions are coming from the operations, right? Whether it's gas or coal or whatever, a wind. In the garment, it's quite the opposite. So the actual manufacturing takes about, you know, 60% of the CO2 emissions, and then running it, you know, washing it, dry cleaning it takes about 40, sometimes 60% if it's, you know, a t-shirt that requires washing every run. So it's kind of the opposite, but the bottom line is that it all requires data that doesn't exist in the industry yet. Nobody's tracing post-consumer data in the industry. Everybody's tracing data when you manufacture a wind turbine, whether it's making it and then operating it, but the operational side of the unit in the sector does not exist anymore yet. And if you multiply it by the billions and billions and billions of garments in the world, imagine how much data you're missing to understand, you know, what makes a product last longer, what makes a product, you know, more repairable or recyclable or resellable. You know, this data is so fundamental for the sustainability of the industry. So this is
fundamental for sustainability. Sorry to interrupt you here. It is what I agree for sustainability. That's paramount, but What about, I mean, taking a step back to the fashion industry, why should they care?
Well, firstly, we are lucky to have that regulation creeping up already in Europe.
Okay, that's
They
one.
don't care, but there's a stick, right? There's a stick. Now,
But
what
isn't
we do, sorry.
isn't there also customer pressure?
Yeah, but customers are lazy. They sort of, there's a couple of things they hear there's a good PR around certain brand, which is indeed very sustainable or could be sustainable, but not really is sustainable, called greenwashing, right?
Hmm?
And they jump on the trend. They buy a lot of it, or but to be honest with you, sustainability is never really the key driver for consumers to shop these days. It's still second, sometimes third reason people buy. Price is number one. In luxury segment, it's the style, it's the look, it's the brand. Sustainability has never been the first reason why people buy. So, and we're not banking on it to be the first. We don't need it to be the first, right? What we need right now is to basically look at the legislation, right? Europe has been through the same legislation in the energy sector in the early 2000s when the first feed-in tariffs started creeping up. So back then for the energy, that was the carrot for the industry, right? Here's more money per kilowatt hour, you know, put up more solar panels and wind turbines. In fashion, it is more about a stick, right? So you have to disclose your information. Now, what we're doing, we're turning that stick into a carrot. We're saying, okay, guys, let's put all this information on the digital product passport, but also let's connect this garment to the care products, to dry cleaners. If your customer dry cleans this dress through your QR code, you're going to get 10% of every single dry clean your customer is going to do in the next 2 years.
I see that. And how do you convince the dry cleaner service to be a part of it? Or you don't need?
The dry cleaners, so the services are it's like supply chain, you know, they're not the brands. They're sort of much easier to convince the brands. We offer them a lot better deal than purely going direct to consumer. So let's say they operate on a 30% marketing budget of their revenue. We ask them only for 10% of the transaction and we give them customers. So it's easy conversion for them to make.
Okay, so for them it's easy. Okay, so we are running a little bit short on time here. I realized I lost track somewhere like on a minute 10 of our conversation.
No worries.
But I do have two more important questions for you.
Shoot.
I ask them every guest I have. So you've been operating this for more than 2 years now, right?
Correct.
If you could go back in time, what would you do just before you started growing? What would you have done differently to get more growth?
I would focus a lot
Or would you not?
or not. No, definitely. Look, it's the learning curve, right? I think so definitely would pay more attention to details. And not delegate, be hands-off as much as I was. So I would take a job, I would give it to the person, I would sort of expect weekly reports and things, but I would not really check the work myself. It's similar to Brian Chesky's Airbnb journey. You know, when he was very hands-off, things started going wrong. And it happened to us as well, you know, because I was delegating, being hands-off and democratic in the team, things started going wrong. And I would definitely change that now. It'd be a lot more, you know, laser focus on data almost 24/7, customer, you know, funnel. Where's that transaction? Have they got their quotes? Have they finished their clean? Have they finished their repair? Why the repair didn't complete? You know, what happened in the middle? So grilling every single transaction to understand, you know, why things went right or why things went wrong. So it started happening sort of already on, you know, slightly later than it should have.
And how would that help you? In what would it help you with specifically, apart from you having a lot of control over how things are going?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it would give us insight much sooner, and we would have we would have prioritized certain features and debugging much sooner than we invested in the sort of slightly wrong features. You know what I mean? Like, because we didn't analyze our transactions properly, we overspent on features that were not quite convertible or quite necessary for the growth. So we then started focusing on them slightly later in the journey, and it sort of showed that, you know, eventually you run out of money, right? So you need to kind of make sure that you really go hand to hand with the data, with the feedback straight away, rather than you kind of think the kind of data kind of shows that, so let's plan that. But then because you didn't do that little homework, you end up sort of losing that priority of the feature that you actually should have done that better, because that customer would have been a lot more loyal and would probably transacted 3 more dresses as opposed to this one dress, and then she went off and, you know, did something else. So yeah,
it would really help to develop your product faster, right?
Yes,
and to
absolutely.
kind of tailor it more so you were getting that feedback, which I understand was crucial for you at that time.
Yeah.
It's still crucial to you, but it would be I mean, the return on paying attention to it in the beginning would be far higher.
Yeah, we would have probably, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of other things that happened along the way that, you know, was outside of our control, but you're asking about what I would personally, it's in my control.
Yes, yeah. Well, what's in your control? I mean, things happen all the time, but thanks. It's very interesting. It's the first time actually. There's not been many episodes, but still, it's the first time to say that is what I would have done differently. Okay, and then the final question would be, what would you recommend to the green tech startups which are, you know, just starting out, which they have this wonderful idea how to save the planet in their particular sphere? Would it be like waste management or circular economy or energy, or even energy, by the way? It's still shows that there's still some innovation pockets left even in energy. So
Gosh, man,
yes.
innovation is the hardest journey you could ever take. Honestly, jumping on the trend sometimes is so much easier. Going and creating a development company in India and wherever to, you know, start building solar projects probably is a lot more profitable than any innovation you could imagine.
What would you recommend to watch out?
Sorry?
What would you recommend them from your experience, what they should watch out for?
Absolutely. So focus on the long-term goal for sure. Short term, there's going to be so many problems. But if there is that vision that this is the right thing for the future of the industry, it helps enormously to survive any issues. But also be mindful of the fact that most likely industry is going to develop in the way that you haven't predicted it will. There's more chances that the industry will change in the next 5 years than it will, you know, go the way you predicted to go in your business plan. I would say maybe even make your plan B your plan A in a way, and make sure that you have funding, you have resources, you're prepared for it. You know, if you need to pause the project for a couple of months whilst you're fundraising or figuring stuff out, then, you know, make sure that the team is prepared for it on standby, or, you know, you have enough money to survive, pay your mortgage and things like that, because it's, you know, personal finances is becoming very, very important at that stage in the early days when things go wrong, for example, and you need to figure stuff out. So, but yeah, because you know, one of the things that I did, I was so confident, I was overly confident about, you know, the future of the product, and the reality turned out to be very different, and I was prepared for it, which is good mentally, but a lot of people aren't, and bankruptcies are all over the place.
So put in your budget 6 months.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah, always have
just doing nothing.
Yes.
Just
Always have the cushion. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Always have that little cushion.
Would be nice also to know how to convince investors that we do that. or you didn't have that scrutiny of the budget.
Well, it was a scrutiny of the budget, but clever investors, those who have successful investors and those who know how to invest, they understand that things will go wrong inevitably. When they scrutinize, they only want to do it as an exercise, that you are doing your homework. But they don't expect that things will turn out exactly as you said in your business plan. They know it's probably going to be pivoting. They know it's the likelihood. You say 90%, in their books it's 30%. At this early stage, they all know it. But what they do, they invest in person. They know that you're not going to give up. They know what kind of troubles you've been in your life. They know your background, and they know that you're bloody stubborn to actually go and achieve what you want to achieve, maybe in a different form and shape. But you are going to get there eventually. And as you know, it's usually a 10-year journey for startups before you actually know if it's gonna fly or die. So we're in year 3 now.
That's a very important thing you just said. It's a 10-year journey. It's because I think most of us, when they plan out, okay, 3-5 years, going 3-5 years, we're gonna get it, or at least we were gonna survive, stay afloat, and then maybe we could grow something. Yeah, that's connecting with what you just said a little bit earlier about keeping the long-term goal in mind. So if I may paraphrase you here, set your 10-year goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Know be sure that industry will change in unpredictable ways that you cannot imagine in this 10 years. And just say, I'm going to devote 10 years to this project. It's going to succeed no matter what. I just have to stay in the game.
Exactly. Unless things go completely out of control, I don't know, Third World War, God knows, hopefully not, but you might want to consider manufacturing drones rather than shoes.
Actually, I know founders who shifted who shifted countries after the war, and they survived.
Yeah.
I mean, the business survived. They did survive, of course, but they survived. The business actually survived and grew after that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even you're right that you plan it in one, and actually you started in Australia of all places, just another end of the world, and then you pivoted, and now you're in UK. Now it's growing. So I think it's a very important thing to take away from that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tatiana.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really great talking to you after all this time. And
good to catch up. Yeah.
Yes, and
Speak to you in a year, I guess, to report.
I will do that. Yes, well, I would really love to learn how you develop it, as well as one of my daughters. She's wants to go into fashion industry. I will let her show. I will show you this video, and this
please
is
do.
an example of how you can do that.
We do need clever interns, so.
But she's on the more creative side, but that's a different.
Well, that's the thing. Creatives need to, like any fashion school you go to right now, they finally have obligatory sustainability courses now. They finally make you learn how to choose materials, how to think about materials, how to think about repairability. So that's good news. She's not going to get away with it, unfortunately or fortunately.
Well, that's fortunately. I think that's really fortunate, and it's great. And I think it's every little bit we do will help. I mean, in this industry.
Amen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.